You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth, the show that detects, exposes, and reveals actual and hidden facts, truth, research, and statistics about all the Detroit and Michigan sports teams that the mainstream media doesn't want you to know, whether fans like it or not. No junk, no entertainment, no homerism, no coddling, no pop culture, no opinions, no shilling, and no fluff. Head over to our website at michigansportstruth.weebly.com, follow us on Twitter at Michigan_Truth, and like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth. Also listen to us on Spreaker, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts via iTunes. The Michigan Sports Truth podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them.
And welcome to episode 11 of the midweek edition. I'm Taylor Phillips along with Ed Smith. Follow me on Twitter personally at DT2Phillips. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter at EdSmith313. Ed, we got lots to talk about. Pistons, even some Red Wings, but most of all, the Tigers getting their asses kicked on by the Oakland Athletics, and some hidden truth about the reason why they fired pitching coach Chris Bosio.
Yeah, so definitely some exclusive stuff that you guys are going to get on tonight's show. So, waiting to get forward to it as much as you are, Taylor.
Yep. Let's start off with the Pistons first.
Left sideline, 3, and he answers.
The Pistons draft picks, they trade up with the Philadelphia 76ers at number 30 overall to get shooting guard Kyrie Thomas from Creighton, and then from Miami, Florida at number 42 overall, shooting guard Bruce Brown Jr. You got the analysis on that. Buck Gino and I went over those, and now it's your turn.
Yeah, from what I can tell you for certainty, the Pistons have a lot of areas that they need to cover, need to fill, need to improve upon into this draft. Obviously, you can't fix every single need with 2 picks, as realistic as you want to be. So they had to take this one as one area at a time. And remember, the Pistons, they did not have a first-round pick. They gave that up in order to get Blake Griffin. So with this move that they had to do in order to be in a selection position to get Thomas, they had to give up 2 future second-round picks. So that would be a kick the can down the road type of situation. We'll see what we have to give up. We'll see if it was the right decision or not in terms of the long term. But for short term, what you see right here, I like the move, and I definitely like the player that they got. Thomas is a guy who is, in terms of his offense, he can find his own shot. Okay, he has great attacking ability. He can finish at the rim very well. Most importantly, he does have a 3-point shot. He shot 41% from 3 last year in his college tenure at Creighton. But what really impresses me is his defense. Especially his on-ball defense. He likes to suffocate you. He likes to get up tight on you. Does not give you much room to breathe. There's a reason why he was named a back-to-back Defensive Player of the Year in the Big East. When you talk about all the guards and the type of defense that they play in the Big East, for him to be named the best defensive player of that whole entire conference, that says something. And it's evidence when you see him play, not just his on-ball defense, but also his length. This man is 6'3", maybe undersized for a shooting guard, but he's got a 6'10" wingspan, so that's something you latch onto. With his length and with his size, more so his length, he's able to make impacts and pass lanes, get steals like Kawhi Leonard, get blocks, like they're nothing almost. And it plays in reason into why he was named Defensive Player of the Year at the Big East not once but twice. So I think the Pistons, they might have potentially gotten a real steal here, actually getting Thomas from the Philadelphia 76ers. Now for Bruce Brown, on the other hand, Bruce Brown, like Thomas, by the way, both these guys were considered at some point potential first-round picks. How they managed to get this far is beyond me, if you're looking at some of the tape. But with Brown's concern, it's more understandable. He is coming off of a serious foot injury that cut down his sophomore year in Miami. Other than that, though, as long as he recover fully well from that, This is another young guy that has a lot of potential. He's 6'5", but he has a long wingspan of his own. His attacking, he can play some. He's a two-way player as well. But his main strength to me comes to whenever he has on his hands and he's on offense. His attacking ability and ways that he can finish at the rim are just outstanding. He can maneuver and twist his body in different ways. He's almost like a full-headed steed whenever he gets a chance to go downhill. It's almost unstoppable to a degree. And to me, again, it all depends on his health. As long as he recovers from that foot injury well, and it doesn't begin a long-term effect where it's just injury after injury, this could be another young, promising player that the Pistons have in their hands. In terms of what I felt of it, I like the moves because it gives you some help in terms of finding some wings, because you gave up a lot of wings in that Blake Griffin trade. You gave up Tobias Harris, you gave up Avery Bradley. You gave up potentially, as we now see, you gave up Miles Bridges. So you need to get some type of wing help if needed be to help improve your team, not just offensively, but also most especially defensively. Your three-point defense was absolute shit last year. Now with guys like Mike Thomas and Mike Brown, it gives you more longer perimeter defenders that can help Stanley Johnson out on the perimeter while Andre and Blake handle the paint and post. So that's a move that definitely improves your defense, improves your guard play, and improves your help with the wings. So I very much approve of these picks that they made.
Yep. All right. So got some other hirings to talk about. They hired another assistant coach, in fact, a top assistant coach to Dwayne Casey, Sidney Lowe from the Washington Wizards. So this is another hiring that the Pistons made in terms of the coaching staff, and then they hired Malik Rose as an assistant GM to pretty much fill up the entire front office revamp, and then they signed Texas Tech guard Keenan Evans to a 2-year deal.
Oh, man!
My comments briefly on these two subjects, first of all, with the front office, from what I've read, from what I've seen, it is in a ways that they're trying to mirror the familiarity, clone a little bit of what we saw in Toronto with the Raptors. Ed Stefanski was the GM there. Dwayne Casey was the coach there. Both guys know each other from that tenure, so it makes sense to get other guys that might have known or been similar to come from similar trees of where you came from yourself. So, in a way, it's like what the Lions are trying to do. They're trying to turn themselves into a version of the Patriots, the way that the Pistons are now trying to turn themselves into a version of the Raptors. It's quite interesting. Pardon me.
Yep.
For the second part, when it comes to the Evans signing, I really like, because this is another guard help that gives you with help in that area. So you don't have to depend on older guys like Jameer Nelson, for instance, or even Ish Smith to a degree. You basically, when those guys get older and start to fade out, you can rotate these young guys in, and they'll be your next centerpiece guards for the future. As for Evans, I really like his ability on offense as well to attack. So again, this is an area where you get better defensively potentially. You get more approval with your guard play. You get some wing help, and you get more scores off the bench, which is what areas of what the Pistons needed to address significantly in one way, shape, or form. So overall, I'm quite liking what they've done, not just with this draft, not just in the aftermath of this draft, but frankly this whole season. If I had a grade to give, it would be a very, very high marking grade for sure.
Yeah, and that's going to be on our What's Your Grade segment later on before the end of the show. So, I believe that is Pistons talk. So we're going to transition to Red Wings here. Their first two draft picks were awesome. They took the best players available. First of all, right winger Filip Zadina at number 6, and then center Joe Veleno at number 30. Going into number 30, Joe Veleno was the 14th best available player.
Holy
and the Red Wings took it. All the other teams left it for them. Somehow they kind of the reason why they wanted other different players of their own kind. I get that, but that opened the door for the Red Wings. They didn't. Nobody else took the top. Nobody else took the best players available, but the Red Wings. Pardon me for being a homer for a little bit, but it just seems that way, doesn't it? Just seems that way.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ken Holland was quoted, I believe, by other media people around the league as saying, "Hey, we got to think defense. We need defensemen coming in this draft." And then, first chance he gets, he sees, Zadina falling to him. I'm like, oh my goodness, as much as as we have given Ken Holland over the years, this was a move that, a no-brainer that even he could have definitely made. So I'm glad he was able to have enough brain activity remaining to make this kind of move, make this kind of pick, make this kind of selection. So where, yes, I know you have other needs, but this is a potential, redefining the face of your franchise for the next several years type of move that you're making here. I see that in Zadina. The way he moves on the ice, the way he just fires that shot. He's an absolute sniper of the highest order. Is it too early to Christian him as the next Dotsuk or the next Ovechkin? Possibly. But the kid has talent, and it's there. And there's a reason why so many people were shocked that he fell so far as much as he did. Even as it's still top 10, but still, some people were thinking he should have been top 3, if not a top, number 1 overall. So to see him fall to 6 was very surprising. So the Wings, yeah, I'm very happy that you snatched him up. As for the other pick, Lehner, he is a center. He's very lanky, but he can give you some good playmaking ability from that spot. Clearly, you haven't seen that since the days of Steve Eisman and whatnot, or even a Joe Sakic to a degree. Granted, you play, and that's me critiquing on what he could remind you of. Even though, yes, Sakic played for the Avs, but still, there's that style and play and look. I see a lot in this young man. So if he develops nicely, develops more of an offensive hand, he could turn into a real potential. Again, both of these two guys, what they did, picking them and how they picked them, could be absolute steals to be looked upon years from now as, wow, that was a steal of the draft, and that was a steal of the draft. They may have just very well drafted your next Zetterberg and Dotson. You don't even know it.
Yeah, we'll see what he can bring to the table, Ken Valeno. I'm pretty sure he'll bring at least plenty, maybe even more than that. Other news we want to reach out to, the Red Wings reach out to, as far as free agency goes, the Red Wings reach out to 2 former Red Wings, Valterri Filppula and Thomas Vanek.
Oh, man!
They've also reached out to Buffalo Sabres goaltender Robin Lehner. They're looking for a backup goaltender behind Jimmy Howard, and thus far, Robin Lehner is the only goaltender the Red Wings have shopped for a backup goaltender. We'll keep an eye out for more news info on that, but this is all that they've retained. But
Filppula is a real interesting name. Very interesting to see the Wings reach out to him again.
Yeah, and the Red Wings are at least considering trying to get him back.
Yeah, I mean, he was quite productive when he was here. It was almost disappointing that he had to be let go or they had to part ways. But if he feels that he can still give it a go, I wouldn't mind seeing him back in the wheel again.
Right. And how about Thomas Vanek? He was another goal scorer for the Red Wings 2 seasons ago, and he didn't. His tenure in Detroit was very short-lived when he got traded to the Florida Panthers. In his only season in Detroit, the Red Wings were selling at that time. Ken Holland was selling the wrong way.
I think Vanek was one of those young guys I thought that you could use as a potential building piece along with Mantha and Tatar and Larkin, right? Tatar, he's now with Vegas, but still, he was one of those pieces, those names that I mentioned. So it's good to see the Wings at least trying to get him back as well.
Yep. And then Robin Lehner, again, a backup goaltender for Jimmy Howard, but Robin Lehner has been the number one goaltender for the Buffalo Sabres. The only thing it's going to come down to is, does he want to become a backup goaltender for a struggling team, or does he want to prove his greatness as a number one goaltender for his own team?
Yeah, potentially a playoff team. He may want to go to a team that has a better shot getting into the playoffs this upcoming season than what the Red Wings have currently.
Yeah, and
that might factor into what he decides to do as well.
Yeah, and the Buffalo Sabres, congrats to them on getting that number one draft pick, Rasmus Dahlin, the guy the Red Wings should have definitely tanked for, which they never did the last 2 years when they missed the playoffs. So that's Red Wings talk. Now, one team left to cover, and that's the Tigers.
That one is long gone.
Well, the Oakland Athletics, as I addressed before, were a red-hot team coming into Detroit, and they made the Tigers pay. They came back in the first and second games. One of them, let me see here. It was it was 5-4. Tigers blew a 4-1 lead after taking it on a Nick Castellanos three-run home run. Joel Menes gives up 3 runs in the 8th inning, and then Shane Green gives up a game-winning solo home run to Jed Lowry, and then Jed Lowry hits another home run to inch the A's within closer. The Tigers had a 6-0 lead on Tuesday. They blew it and lost 9-7.
Oh my!
You blew it!
And then they get shut out by you know who, or you don't know who, Chris Bassett. First win of the season. They don't score any runs at all. They commit 2 errors, one of them a fielding error by Nico Goodrum. My God.
Goodness.
Yeah, they stink.
Putrid.
Yeah.
Putrid baseball.
I know, right? That's called a rebuilding season. Tigers are now 36-45.
Yes, please embrace that tank, my friends.
Yes, absolutely.
We're only 5 losses away from the halfway mark on the march to 100. So let's keep it up. We can definitely get to 60 before the All-Star break.
Absolutely. And the Tigers are now 9 games back in the AL Comedy Central.
There you go.
Yeah, and they're in 3rd place, too. Still a half game back of the Minnesota Twins, who are 8.5 games back. Tigers have now lost 8 straight.
You are pathetic!
The Indians, however, are 9 games above 500 at 45 with a 44-35 record, making only the AL Comedy Central now just 4/5 of the AL Comedy Central, not quite entirely. Cleveland is in first place, but still only 9 games above 500. They have to be more elite than that to be a first place team in a division. Like the Boston Red Sox, 54-27. The Yankees are chasing them 52-26. The Houston Astros, the defending champions, 54-28. Yikes! Seattle, the Mariners, 50-31. They had the AL West lead for a little while. The Oakland Athletics, 43-38. They and the Tigers play at 110. Michael Fulmer versus Manaea, 7-6. With a 3.40 ERA, Sean Manaea, a 0.96 WHIP. This ought to be a pitcher's duel.
Oh
on
yeah,
paper.
definitely, without question.
Yep. And then they're at Toronto on the road in a very hostile environment at Rogers Center against the Blue Jays in a 4-game series, carrying over through Monday, for goodness sakes, which is unusual. But how about that? Speaking on unusual, that 3-10 start, I don't know what the hell that was for this past Monday against those A's, but yeah, the thing that matters is the Tigers blew the lead, still lost, which is what we needed for the
Yeah, it
for the
doesn't matter
tanking
what the
press.
margin. A loss is a loss. An L is an L.
Yep.
Have each one on the record.
Yep, and then after Toronto, they go to Wrigley Field for a 2-game set with the Cubs. Both games.
Oh, that should be a demolishing.
Oh, yeah. Go get them, Cubs. Both games at 2:20, the old-fashioned way, just like back in time. Then they're back home against the Texas Rangers for another 4-game set, Thursday through Sunday this time. Saturday's game being at 4:10. Then they're on the road, Tampa Bay and Houston before the All-Star break, and then they're home against Boston, playing another elite, playing the Red Sox. They lost 2 of 3 at Fenway. I can't believe they didn't get swept there. Then they had to Kauffman Stadium play the Kansas City Royals, and then the Cleveland Indians, and then the Cincinnati Reds in a 2-game series at Comerica Park this time. The Reds are still the worst team in the National League as far as I'm concerned. 34-46. Let me check the wild card here. Nope, the third worst in the AL. The Marlins are back to dead last in the NL, like they're supposed to. But we expected the A's to tank, but from the beginning of the season. But look what they are now.
Yep.
Now for the hidden truth story of the midweek edition. The Tigers fire pitching coach Chris Bosio, and the reason why, revealed by our very own Jeff Moss of the Detroit Sports Rag. He tweeted at Dead Sports Rag, he made an anti-Semitic comment to baseball operations analyst Sam Menzin, mentioning Sam Menzin's Twitter handle. And let me see here. He tweeted, his whole tweet said, I think we should all wildly speculate on why Chris Bosio was fired by the Tigers. I'll start. He made an anti-Semitic comment to baseball operations analyst Sam Menzin. Your turn. And this is why it's very discriminatory, to be honest with you. Clearly, and that's what gets you fired. Whatever words you come up with, you got to choose your words carefully in public, whether it's in person or on social media, anywhere online. Chris Bosio
I guess people
the self-destructive button there.
Yeah, I guess people think because we have a reality star in the White House who has emboldened and said crazy shit that now we can be empowered to say whatever the fuck we want with no consequence. I'm glad this was a thoughtful reminder for idiots like him, for idiots like Bosio, who basically had a full Mel Gibson episode, and everybody knows you don't have a full Mel Gibson episode unless you're here to get fucked in the ass, and that's exactly what happened to him there. So good fucking riddance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Donald Trump wooing you-know-what to you-know-what that he cares when he doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Just sickening. You've heard the news about that on my timeline, on my personal timeline, Taylor Phillips on Facebook. But yeah, it's just absolutely baffling. But that's why business was taken care of, and the Tigers now need a new pitching coach. Question is, who will it be? That being said, it's time for our only segment of this episode.
Pencils down, everyone. It's time to find out what's your grade.
Got a handful of events to grade. The Red Wings drafting. We'll start with that first.
Easy A, possibly an A plus. But I'm hesitant. I'm going to have that on reserve, seeing how these two players pan out. But for now, seeing how these guys virtually fell into their laps, the Red Wings draft gets an A for me.
Yeah, they also drafted 8 more players. Keep in mind, I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, but these two were with the clear headliners of this.
Good idea. Yep. I'm gonna make it fair and make it a mid-range A. The Pistons drafting is next?
I'm going to say A. I'm going to give it another A because it took care of a need. It also found a way to potentially improve your team long term. And you might have gotten a steal by taking one guy away from another player for a couple of picks down the road. So I'm going to give this one an A as well. I really like what the Pistons did in this draft.
Buck Gino graded it a B+. You graded a mid-range A. I'm going to grade it an A-. So the Pistons hiring Sidney Lowe as an assistant coach. That's event number 3.
B+ because I don't really know much about him, of his background, but it is something. It is a move that seems to fit into what Stefanski is trying to do, into that whole front office, the whole team, the whole makeup of it. He's putting it at his pace, the guys he wants, and he has trust in them. So we'll see how it goes. But for now, I like how things are moving along smoothly. There's no dumb shit or drama or that nonsense going on. But for this one, I'll give it a B+, solid B+.
All right. The Pistons hiring Malik Rose as an assistant general manager to Ed Stefanski.
Same goes along. The logic of reasoning behind this goes the same line what I just mentioned before. So for that, I give it another B+ as well.
Yep. And finally, the Pistons signing Texas Tech guard Keenan Evans to a 2-year deal. Like you mentioned before, the Golden State Warriors were interested in him, and this has to be a very high grade. And matter of fact, we're going to grade that an A.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not. I can neither confirm nor deny if that was the case. But if looking at some of this tape, if that was true, I could see the reason why. So the fact that the Pistons were able to get this guy on their summer league team, I'm really excited for his potential. So yeah, I definitely got to give this one an A. A is all aboard for the Pistons.
Yep. So those are 5 events for our What's Your Grade segment. So for our audience, if they have a grade for each of those 5 events, post them in the comment bank in this episode, and please don't go out of line. And that's episode 11 of the midweek edition of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Before we sign off, we want to remind everyone to share this episode and our entire podcast on social media and have their friends share that as well, because we want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast is in search of a wider audience that is fans of sports, especially our teams in the state of Michigan, the Tigers, Red Wings, and Pistons, for example. Its Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, and its Twitter handle at Michigan_Truth. I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter at DT2Phillips and Ed Smith at EdSmith313. We'll talk to you next week on episode 12 of the midweek edition.
No problem. I'm looking forward to it, Taylor. Take care.
Yep. Thanks very much for listening, downloading, and sharing. TTFN, ta-ta for now.
The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them.
Mission complete.